Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. In honor of Black History Month, we thought we'd pay tribute and showcase some of the great defining black characters the world has come to love.
In celebration of Black Panther's release, it seemed best to start with some of our MCU favorites. After all, Marvel has created some of the coolest black heroes known to man.
So without further delay, let's explore the history of Nick Fury on Black History Heroes.
Yeah!
So, Dragon, I'm just going to put the disclaimer right out front this time because it's freaking Samuel L. Jackson we're talking about. Dragon, literally, every episode of this, I'm just going to, like, over-exemplify how white I actually am, all right? It's going to be like a running joke. So, Dragon, I have this tan line on my arm, right?
Oh,
And,
God.
it's a nice, kind of respectable tan. But then when you go to the part that the sleeve of my shirt usually covers up, Dragon, it's sad. It is the whitest, most pale skin you can possibly imagine, all right? So I just want to emphasize that right off the front, folks. We're here to examine the cultural impact of these characters, sort of their overall appeal, not just in comic book history, but also, cultural African-American history and whatnot. So, Dragon, the two whitest men on the internet. I think that's a contest we could easily win.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, very inherently. But interestingly, speaking of your disclaimer, let me get my disclaimer. More of an explanation out of the way. So some people, I'm sure, would be wondering. So we're tackling Black History Heroes. We're tackling the coolest of the cool of the MCU black characters. And you might wonder, Nick Fury, while again, beloved, Sam Jackson, beloved, as well as this iteration of Nick Fury, you might be wondering, technically he's not a black character all throughout his comic history. Again, we're going to kind of get into that, into specifics, but I think a reason we kind of sell him this because Nick Fury exemplifies just the character, period, kind of, and especially in correlation to the MCU, exemplifies kind of what the MCU's been doing so well. They've kind of taken characters who existed as white characters in their comic history. Like, again, we had like other characters we could have picked from that we kind of saw Nick Fury being kind of the best representation of this. You have like Ben Urich from the Daredevil comics, who, of course, in the Daredevil series was portrayed by a black actor, and he was fantastic and still felt right off the page. And again, we've seen this done with other characters, like on the big screen as well. Heimdall, played by Idris Elba, of course, in the comics.
That's a good example. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. So we had honestly the only other character,
like pre-MCU, we have like Michael Clark Duncan Kingpin.
Yeah. Again, there were definite examples there. I mean, D'Onofrio will always be the true Kingpin in my heart. Let's not dance around that one. But
I'm not arguing with you there, Dragon. I think Michael Clark Duncan made a fine Kingpin, though.
He was a fine Kingpin, yes. He was a fine Kingpin. But again, D'Onofrio was just perfection as the Kingpin on this planet. But anyway, what I guess what I'm saying is, like, I think the other contender we really had for this, and again, we'll probably get to her down the line. Misty Knight, honestly, is the only other character I was really thinking to.
She's really good. The only problem with Misty Knight, I feel like, is that the same points we hit with Luke Cage, we probably would have hit with her as well.
Exactly. So, and again, it would have been nice to get a female character in there. But again, I feel like we're going to have a lot more awesome black female characters after we see Black Panther.
Dragon, that's what all the hype is all about. It's like people have literally been saying that Black Panther is kind of a side character in his own movie compared to the female characters, which just has me really excited about that.
Exactly. So again, let's just say we'll put a wait and see on Misty Knight and some of the other great characters. But again, Nick Fury kind of exemplifies how Marvel and the MCU have kind of taken characters that we've known one way and kind of shown them in kind of a different context that has become so famous and so notable that it's kind of supplanted the original context for the new generation, as well as for many people who favored the older interpretations of these characters. So, and again, kind of a good example of him being kind of the MCU. He's kind of also been on TV. He's been in film. So again, Nick Fury just kind of seemed to be, various kind of encapsulate various degrees of what we're going for there. So again, it's a very unique thing I think Nick Fury has, and again, very important character in the grand structure of the MCU. We don't have Avengers. We don't have like at least 85% of the Marvel movies without Nick Fury technically. So.
And that very much is appropriate to his character, because a fun fact that I learned researching him is, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Dragon, but there has never been a mainline Marvel character that Nick Fury has not appeared in their book at some point.
Well, that's a tall order to kind of fact check on that one, but I mean, he's been in a lot of Nick Fury's appeared in a lot of comics. I can't. I think you might be right with that. I think you might be right. But I mean,
I mean, I'm not saying he's like a supporting character or anything like that. I'm just saying like it's some
Nick Fury's guest star in a lot. Nick Fury / Shield being the main representative of Shield. He's cameoed in a lot of books.
Sure. So I feel like much like the cinematic universe, even in the comics, he's sort of like the glue that holds everything together in a way.
If Shield is ever uttered, Nick Fury is not far behind.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so speaking of the comic roots, let's talk about the creation of Nick Fury.
Yeah, Dragon, this is a very interesting thing that, of course, I did raise the question to you off air, like, hey, Fury is, he's not quite as white as us because he's much more of a badass than us, but, it's still, a Caucasian guy. But Dragon, importantly, though, with this conversation, Fury is very much a champion of diversity in general with the military.
Yes,
and that was the character trait, really was kind of his defining element even before, long before the Ultimate Nick Fury and the Samuel Jackson days.
Exactly, which again is kind of another clincher for like why Nick Fury just kind of felt very right to talk about here. Is that so? Let me outline it, then we'll jump right into like all the great stuff that both Nick Furies have that kind of really exemplified. So the original Nick Fury, he appeared in Sergeant Fury and his Howling Commandos #1 from 1963. It was created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, and kind of like a lot of Stan Lee's creations, where it was again seemingly like created on a dare. And this one, out of all of them, was very much created on a dare. Because again, I kind of joke about that, but I mean, because Stan Lee famously just kind of did the opposite of what was in the. Very much did kind of the opposite, kind of thought so differently, kind of in contrast to what was kind of in the books at the time. But in this case, and this is funny, I don't know if you know the story, is that he created this book, Sergeant Fury in the Howling Commandos, on a dare of like, I'm going to create a book with the worst name ever, basically proving to someone who said, oh yeah, the characters are so beloved, Spider-Man, Iron Man, the Incredible Hulk, they're so successful because of their names. They have fantastic names, and Stan Lee on a dare is one to prove that. No, it's not the names, it's the characterizations. The writing applied to these guys. So I'm going to give the worst title.
Granted, Dragon, I still think the Howling Commandos is a really cool name.
Yeah, and you got to remember too, this even beyond title, it's a very outdated book technically, because this is in 1963, and
it's basically the closest thing we have to Captain America like propaganda style comics in this run.
And I believe, yeah, this is probably this before the Avengers debuted, I believe. I forget if the Avengers were in 64 or later, 64, possibly 66. Somewhere between. The point is, I'm pretty sure this predates the Avengers. And yeah, looking at that, you see that again, like before they bring Captain America back. That's why it kind of citing the Avengers thing, because even Cap was very much kind of long gone. So because the war was over, so Captain America kind of dried up.
The movie and the story and everything.
Yeah, and Sergeant Sergeant Fury it was a World War II comic in its beginnings before they updated it to Agents of, to Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. to kind of reflect kind of the espionage, Cold War spy stuff going on.
And basically to give Marvel a James Bond type character.
Exactly. And Jim Steranko really ran with that one. I forget if Lee made the jump and then Steranko took over, but it feels very much like
another Dragon. We were talking earlier about like Tarantino and James Bond and everything. If Tarantino were to make a James Bond movie, or I'm sorry, we were more talking about Nolan James Bond, yeah. But if Tarantino were to make a Bond movie, I would love to see one in the style of like the like the Nick Fury era of like him being like a super spy, like that guy. I'm not saying make a Nick Fury movie. I'm just saying like kind of take inspiration from that.
Well, you know who said they want to play Nick Fury? If I'm remembering this correctly, Stephen Lang, the Avatar actor who was considered for.
Yeah, I could see it.
He said he'd love to play classic Nick Fury. Yeah, because a lot of people want him for cable, and he was also down for that. So, I mean, Stephen Lang's open to a lot of the comic possibilities.
So good for cable. I still think, I don't know. We'll see how Josh Brolin does, but we'll see. Anyways.
We'll see. Anyway, so getting back on point. So again, that's it's the Sergeant Fury days. So let's talk about Ultimate Nick Fury. And Ultimate Nick Fury is very much what gives us the MCU Nick Fury. But again, we do blend both of them.
And this is so fascinating how it really worked out, where it's like, they basically created it to be in the likeness of Samuel Jackson without him even knowing about it.
Now, here's the interesting thing.
Imagine the behind-the-scenes meetings that took place when someone pointed it out to Sam Jackson.
Yeah. So let's see. So Ultimate Fury appeared. This is interesting. He had 2 appearances. So Nick Fury reimagined as kind of a more modern day. I don't think they did the Infinity War serum. Sorry, not Infinity War. I don't think they did the Infinity Serum. Infinity Serum, for those who may not be aware, just put it simply, Infinity Serum was essentially what made the Howling Commandos, along with Nick Fury, live from the 40s to the modern day.
Right.
And also Black Widow. So all of those characters from the older days, they were basically allowed to kind of get the Captain America frozen treatment, but through an injection. That was kind of the gist of the point. It's like Nick Fury. That's how they gave Nick Fury like kind of the white on the side.
I bet Cap feels like really cheated by that. Like, hey, you guys actually got to live through all those years.
Yeah. Anyway, so basically he's reimagined the modern day as an African American, and then so that issue was Ultimate Marvel Team Up #5 in 2001. Now the following year you had Ultimates. Ultimates essentially was, if I'm remembering correctly, Ultimates was
Miles Morales is another character that could have very well fit into this series. By the way, Dragon, I just want to give like an honorable mention shout out to that.
That's true, but again, I think we need like the animated movie before we can get really.
Oh yeah, for sure. I agree. Yeah,
but I mean, absolutely. I'm really Miles Morales is so interesting. I really want to. He has a really good backstory, and again, I love how he connects in the this universe to other Spider-Man characters. Anyway, the point is, so with the Ultimates, I believe was like one of the first. If not Ultimate Spider-Man, then Ultimates, and in Ultimates you had, it was the first Avengers book, essentially, and I think they just called it, like, instead of, hey, let's not just call it Avengers, let's call it Ultimates. And it was Ultimates #1 in 2002, so the year after, and that's the one. So Nick Fury, the rebrand Nick Fury was created by Brian Michael Bendis and Mike Allred, and here's where the Sam Jackson comes into play. That was just Nick Fury with, like a crew cut and an eye patch. Brian Hitch, famous artist, like he gives us a lot of shots that we kind of see in the Avengers movie in 2012, like that shot after they learn that Coulson's dead, when Cap and Iron Man are looking really bummed out. That's a Brian Hitch cover. It looks almost identical to that. So Brian Hitch was a premier artist on those books, and he is responsible for the Sam Jackson look. He had the idea, and I guess they. I don't know if it was a permission, if they just did and they hoped that Sam Jackson would like it, if they just kind of rolled the dice on that.
Sure that was the case, Dragon, from my research. It's basically like Sam Jackson found out about it and it wasn't a big deal. He was actually kind of flattered by the whole thing. But yeah, they did it without his official consent.
Yeah, I want to say Sam Jackson probably was down for the same reason they kind of put it in there in the first place, that, if we ever saw Nick Fury in a movie based on, the Ultimate Nick Fury, we'd want it to be Sam Jackson. I think Sam Jackson probably figured, one, I'm in a comic, that's pretty cool. It's very flattering. And secondly, hey, if they're ever looking for a movie, it's an instant job I have here.
And of course, I'm sure that once Sam Jackson contacted them, he got royalties and everything too.
Sure. So, yeah, by all means. That's essentially the creation of both Nick Furies. Now let's talk about the legacy of both of these guys.
Okay, so obviously with comic Nick Fury, it's just sort of the legacy of fighting for the minority, fighting for fighting for diversity within the war, and it's very much something that, of course, we see. Dragon, you want to talk about the two main characters that Sergeant Fury and the Howling Commandos kind of brought on, that sort of, very much brought about characters like Falcon and whatnot, these South African War Machine being someone we just talked about?
Yeah, sure. So let's see. So the original Fury, original classic Fury, he led, I want to say it was the first, just for the historical kind of the big big historical quality of it all. I want to say he led the first integrated teams. The big diversity appeal you had with the Howling Commandos and the two members in question. And we do see in the MCU, and there are other characters, I'm sure, I'm just saying these are the two that are most present to me because again they were in the MCU, and also one of the characters actually still in the movies to this day. We have Jim Morita, who is who's Asian, and we have Gabe Jones, who's African American.
Mm-hmm.
And those two characters, and we've had some other we've had other characters of differing, from not Happy Sawyer, but there's a chance they might have used Happy Sawyer, but they put him in there in the Agent Carter as as an African American gentleman. I can't quite recall, but again, Gabe Jones it's funny. Gabe Jones is related to a character on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that they did. So the point is, a lot of it's funny. A lot of the characters in the MCU, they really did look to kind of the great diversity of the day, and they kind of factored that in of like, hey, in the 40s this was a big thing, and now we're putting together Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. team, and it was dramatic. It was a dramatic thing when they did something with that character.
And of course, that was sort of the counterculture balance to having something that was so rooted in basically just shy of being World War II propaganda, so being in the 60s atmosphere, it was important to have something to really latch onto and make your book stand out in a really appealing way to that sort of movement.
Yeah, and the cool thing, what I really love about those characters is that, and the way we're looking at them now in the MCU, is that we look at those characters and kind of how big it was back in the day for them to be on a team, without saying it so much. But again, the comics history speaks for itself. But they're both legacy characters in that. Again, his grandson was both of their grandsons are in the MCU and in kind of fun or memorable roles. Where again, his grandson's on Gabe Jones's grandson is on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and he had a good arc on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He was the guy who I really loved him. He brought the 40s gadgetry that Coulson geeked out over. He brought all the Captain America era stuff from the 40s that Coulson loved to geek out on, and Jim Morita, Principal Morita from Spider-Man: Homecoming, and I've always loved this because there's a Captain America presence in the President's Fitness Test and the detention videos because his grandfather, I think it's his grandfather, possibly great grand. It has to be grandfather because the other guy was his grandfather. He has a photo in his office of the Howling Commandos and of him. He's played by the same actor, by the way, so it's kind of funny. So yeah, it's just like the legacy impact of those characters. Again, all thanks to Nick Fury.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
What can you say about the Ultimate version other than, it just kind of paved the way for one of the coolest characters in the MCU? It very much brought about sort of a spotlight into the African-American culture in the comics once again, kind of like, he was the coolest black character in Marvel Comics aside of Luke Cage. I mean, what are you going to do? It's Sam Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, notably, he's just looking in the fabric of it all here. Notably, the character is a character being reimagined as a black character, which might have been a first. I don't know if it was a first in the comic. I'm basically having the existing character and reimagining him as a different race, and at the very least, this is something that we've. I think it was the first in the MCU as well. I think it was the first where we kind of took a character off the page and we reimagined him. I mean, in the MCU, I know we've done it before with Michael Clark Duncan as King and other examples. I'm just saying, I think in terms of the MCU, it's like because speaking of recastings and stuff that we did with the War Machine episode, I just figured just for that sake. But also, and this is the cool factor, we do that and essentially. Again, it's all context here. We do that with that character, and we put him in the highest authority in Marvel Comics on Earth, essentially, short of like the cosmic beings. Nick Fury, he's he kind of outclasses the White House in terms of like clearance and security, and watch over the Earth with the shield. So again, you take a black character and you put him in the highest position of authority you can, that even rivals government.
But then the important thing to note about that, though, is that it comes with its own sort of tricky set of territory, and Nick Fury is an imperfect character. You know what I mean? He's not like a Luke Cage-style beacon of hope. He's very much a sketchy personality in some regards, where, much like the MCU with the comics, and I imagine, other medium, he's very much a character where it's like, you want to trust him, darn it, but, there's just something a little off about him, and he's out for his own best interest.
Yeah, well, we see in the MCU, and we'll dwell on this a little bit more later, is that, Fury, he's a guy with secrets. He's a guy with secrets, and traditionally Fury's a guy with sinister secrets, or questionable secrets, I should say. Not sinister, but, very, very questionable motives, and again, with an agenda, where, again, MCU, it's very much like, he's got secrets. They are for a greater good, but again, they are, we raise a debate. We raise ethical debates of, like, how much privacy are people entitled to? What is freedom versus fear? Like the great debates like that. But also a few things. Of course, we modeled someone after a very notable and very well regarded black icon in Sam Jackson.
Of course,
so definitely we did. That's a biggie.
What year was this, Dragon? Remind me.
What year was Sam Jackson put on Nick Fury's body?
Yes. That's a good way to put it.
2002.
Okay, so I mean, you've got to keep in mind this was like Sam Jackson. I'm sure this was like Pulp Fiction. Sam Jackson. Sure, I want to say, Dragon, this is going to sound really silly in retrospect because no one actually went to the movie.
If the interrogator
Sam
was out?
Jackson's popularity kind of exploded with Snakes on a Plane.
Right. Do you remember? Do you remember what year
like
the
that's where the
came out?
cult of Sam Jackson kind of really started to take effect. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Do you remember when The Interrogator came out, the movie with him and crap. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to.
Sound familiar to me.
No, it was a. All right. Oh, right. No, I'm sorry. It was him and Kevin Spacey. That was what it was. Sorry.
I know he was right around that time.
Right. Also, I mean, of course, Jurassic Park. So Sam Jackson was starting to get around in the movies. Like, he was becoming a very, very familiar face in film. Of course,
his most notable role, probably even still to this day, is Pulp Fiction. So
certainly, definitely, there's a lot of hype built around Sam Jackson. So again, it's a big move. Like, I can imagine people opening that comic for the first time, saying, "Did I just see what I thought I saw? Am I going crazy? I've seen this guy before." It's like Brian Hitch. He made a deal with the devil. He made Ultimate Nick Fury look just like Sam Jackson. And he got God. And again, go with the next issue. He still looks like Sam Jackson. What's going on here?
Is this like a celebrity crossover or what?
Yeah. Let's see. I think it might be Interrogators. I think that's what it's.
Okay.
Interrogator. Anyway, points that was big at the time. I think that was like early 2000s. That's what I'm thinking. Maybe that was like kind of like the big, like, hey, he's everywhere now, so let's do it. I don't know. Whatever movie came out in 2002 might have been. Hopefully not that Eugene Levy movie. That was not.
Oh
that
God.
Nothing against Eugene Levy. I'm just saying, like, that was
That
was a really cheesy movie where he had like
a
God. You remember he had like not the Jerry curl, he had like the weird the weird mini dreadlocks. It was ridiculous.
Oh geez, that's a really good pull, Dragon. Eugene Levy's the man. Oh man.
He had he had the Kenan Thompson hair from the late 90s, like that ridiculous. Like, really silly the way he looked in that movie.
All I remember is that Eugene Levy was just like in the marketing. It's basically just like, hey, you like the dad from American Pie? You like Sam Jackson?
It was so ridiculous. Anyway, just let's slowly transitioning off of Sam Jackson.
Had the appeal of like, why him? You know what I mean? In terms of like, it's a terrible movie with a decent pairing of actors.
Yeah, and like the whole thing is like, hey, this guy gets on Sam Jackson's
nerve. Similarly, like, generic title.
But his family likes him, so he must not be all bad.
Exactly. Anyway,
let's see. So the point is,
way too much time talking about you. Levy's the man.
Okay. Oh God. So again, folks, we're not just folks. I want to clarify. We're not just saying, while it is somewhat true, Eugene Levy is the man, but no, the movie is called The Man.
Yeah. Anyways,
I want to clarify. Anyway, the point is, the reason we're going that Sam Jackson tangent is that you stuck around and you have a character that a design like that sticks around and becomes so popular. It's an iteration of the Ultimate Nick Fury became so popular. It in many ways, in many fans' hearts, but also in the regular, in the 616 comics, supplanted the original. Because in the 616, basically the regular kind of the one star from the 60s that we're still reading today, like the main line of comics, we created Nick Fury Jr.
Yep.
You want to explain Nick
once
Fury
again,
Jr.?
it's just kind of like a Sam Jackson clone.
Yeah. You want to explain it, Tiki, or should I just briefly?
Oh, I mean, honestly, the one thing I know about Nick Fury Jr. is he's got like the healing factor that Nick Fury does. The what is it? The DNA.
Yeah, just make it simple, folks. And the healing factor thing, I think, is a little more subjective. Basically, they have the Nick Fury, the original, the classic Nick Fury, the white Nick Fury from that was in the comics for many years. He the idea is he had a love child, and they killed him off in the book. Again, I didn't read the story personally, but it was like Nick Fury's died a number of times. He's usually faked it. He's usually faked his death. Like, see what they do, Tiki, in the games. Sometimes it's really funny is that he's a life model decoy, the LMD. So basically, the idea is whenever Fury dies, it's usually a robot.
Oh, jeez.
So the point is Nick Fury has died, and they revealed whether it would stick or not. I think they actually made this one stick because the basis is their way of finally having just like the ultimate Nick Fury that was very popular in the movies at this point. So they finally basically they found a way of Nick Fury's love child, who kind of grew up not knowing that his actual name was Nick Fury Jr. He he kind of gets into an accident which gives him the eye patch, and then basically he accepts it. He learns of his true parentage, and he becomes the new Nick Fury. So basically the point, folks, and it's the last thing I think, then we'll just get right into the MCU of it all, is that we found a way to have our cake and eat it too. So anyone who was a big fan of the classic Nick Fury, and look, I grew up with the Spider-Man animated series where that had the classic Nick Fury and had a couple episodes. That was my Nick Fury for all intents and purposes. Hasselhoff or no Hasselhoff, that was my Nick Fury.
Right.
And so the point is, you kind of had that, and you had that history behind it. You had the old World War II here, and basically had a way of kind of getting all those years of Nick Fury, Infinity Serum, and everything, but also having kind of your new take on Fury, who was he was a soldier in the whatever most recent war we had going on, and he and also they put him in the Steve Rogers they put him in the Steve Rogers patriotic suit. So hey, it's the new leader of S.H.I.E.L.D. They kind of put all the bells and whistles on. Isn't this great? It's the nexus of the universe. We got everything.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Right, so that's the legacy. Basically, having your cake and eating it too, folks. So again, supplanting the long history of Nick Fury. So,
okay, so everyone knows how Nick Fury was introduced into the MCU, Dragon, of course. It kind of set the standard for waiting until after the credits for not just Marvel movies, but I feel like it popularized the post credits. Like post credits were definitely around before this, but this kind of set a new standard.
Yeah, this was the first. Of course, he appeared very memorably in the first MCU post-credit scene, and let's talk a little bit about talk about Iron Man 2 a little bit in there.
Of course. Iron Man 2, honestly, I mostly just remember the donut scene and just him chastising Tony.
Yeah, what the big thing to take away from Nick Fury in Iron Man 2, and again, Nick Fury, nothing that's. I'll say this: I think the weakest Nick Fury we got in all the movies is probably in Iron Man 2, but not because of.
Yeah.
It's not really because of the performance. It's because it's the writing. Because basically, you get to see progression.
It's hard to mess up a Sam Jackson performance. I mean, even when he's not trying, he's on his A game. That's
the thing. So again,
how he is.
He's not the problem, but here's what the problem is. There's a balance to strike, and I guess we'll discover this. And again, I think you'll see there's a great progression with the Sam Jackson Nick Fury. Is that we reach a point where we're kind of figuring it out because again, the Iron Man post credits seem okay. Just we see him there and he delivers an awesome line, and then again it's like okay, we've established Nick Fury and it's the ultimate Nick Fury. Okay, we've set a standard. Iron Man 2 essentially is hey, we did that thing with Nick Fury, so now we got to show basically we're rushing to the finish line of okay, let's get to Avengers fast. Let's just cram all the stuff so we don't have to bog down the other movies. Let's cram it all into a subplot in Iron Man 2 that, hey, we're building the Marvel.
Which is also my big problem with Black Widow in Iron Man 2 as well. Black Widow didn't feel nearly developed enough.
And that's what I'm saying. I'm lumping all that all the Shield stuff in Iron Man 2 did feel very much like that's all like.
Truth, I think Coulson is probably the best element of Iron Man 2 in terms of the Shield stuff.
Well, sure. And I guess and the thing is, so again, what I like about Nick Fury, he has one really good scene in that movie, and the balance you always want. They had the strike before they discovered by the time they got to Avengers. Even with, but again, it was like a one scene job with Captain America. It's really in Avengers when we were starting really
Captain
lame.
America, I did like that moment though.
I mean, I love that moment. I'm just saying it's not really. It doesn't really
blends the old into the new. It kind of reminds me. It's a good sort of lead into Avengers where it's like he was the last thing we saw in Iron Man 1, and now he's like the last thing we see going out of Captain America.
So I mean, yeah, it's good. I'm just saying it's in the same vein of like, well, it's Neo. It's not really, you don't really have we don't spend a lot of time with him, but it's a good, powerful scene though. We'll get there. But what I'm saying is there's a balance strike where, is he Sam Jackson in a Marvel movie or is he Nick Fury? That's the balance. They had a strike. And I think Iron Man 2, he's Sam Jackson in a Marvel movie. We get to Avengers and Winter Soldier, he's Nick Fury.
To tell you the truth, I think there's moments in Avengers where he's straight up Nick Fury, or the straight up Sam Jackson. I mean, like the rocket launcher moment.
Moments, yes, and I think the action moments are Sam Jackson. I think the rest,
I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining, Dragon. That rocket launcher moment is one of the more underrated sort of bits of comedy in Avengers. I feel like it's meant to be sort of like a call to like, yeah, you know who's playing this character. You know who that is.
And with that, again, when we say, again, I'm glad you brought that up to you, because again, we're not saying Sam Jackson, is inferior in any way, shape, or form by any stretch. No, heck no. What we are saying though is that again, it feels like it feels like in your face, like, okay, yeah, hey, it's Sam Jackson doing something cool, yeah.
Exactly.
It basically feels like, yeah, we put it in there because it's just cool, Is it Nick Fury? No, but it's cool. But anyway, with Iron Man 2, that with his introduction, he has one really good, really Nick Fury scene in that movie for me, where I love that he saves Tony Stark by utilizing, because he does save Tony Stark's life in that movie, in a very cool way, where he reminds him of his connection to his history of the MCU through Howard Starks. I mean, that was the big role of Nick Fury in Iron Man 2. They again cut away like all of like, hey, we're world building is the undercurrent of like, hey, we are world building for a reason. We're showing that, hey, we got roots here, we got stories we can tell even in the past of the MCU, and again, like saving Tony through reminder of like where his faults lie, where they emanate from.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's how do we overall how do we feel about the man, the myth, the legend, the Fury?
It's funny, Dragon. I feel like, much like the comic book sometimes tends to do, Nick Fury has sort of faded into the background out of his after his explosive appearance in Winter Soldier, which I feel might be the best Nick Fury we ever got, because we have that amazing action scene with him, the chase scene. We have of course, you said we have a lot of good character building stuff, sort of like probably the most humanized we ever get Nick Fury in the MCU. And we also get the fake death subplot.
We do. We kind of we check all the Nick Fury boxes in Winter Soldier. And again, I would say that's the best Nick Fury performance that Sam Jackson.
But then after that, he sort of like, he makes a little bit of like, hey guys, remember me? I'm still around in Age of Ultron. And then he's just sort of, he's kind of a question mark now. Like, there's been reports that he's not going to pop up in Infinity War at all, in the midst of that giant ensemble.
Yeah, again, was it archival, like in that trailer, or was it, or is it like, hey, he's in there for a reason? We're teasing it. Hey, Fury, no, Fury's not in this, but hey, how is it poetic if we kill off Fury? Actually, this time, not just fake death.
But yeah, I mean, overall, like I said, I feel like that's kind of like by design. I feel like they're sort of building up to like phase 4. One of the big pivotal turning points in the comics was Fury sort of redesigning S.H.I.E.L.D. from the ground up. And Dragon, you've told me some things about how they do it with Coulson, and Coulson's kind of now in charge of, redesigning S.H.I.E.L.D. And I feel like one of their big trump cards to play with Phase 4 that we've talked about already And this would be sort of easier to do than the big, bad, dreaded, scary, working the Marvel Netflix stuff into the MCU, Dragon. God knows we can have that.
Perish the thought. It's not like Queen's close to Hell's Kitchen or anything.
But I feel like reintroducing Coulson into the MCU would be sort of like a good step towards that, and sort of bringing some of his storyline from, from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., specifically kind of like the Willy Wonka of it all that you kind of mentioned it to me, like, like the Nick Fury passing off the golden ticket.
Yeah, look, let me make it clear, because no one's going to know Willy Wonka means out of context. What I mean is just that wonderful ending of Willy Wonka where, it's like, the man who got everything he ever wanted. Just like a happy-go-lucky.
Like, that, Coulson kind of got the keys to the chocolate factory at the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. season 1.
Yeah.
So in terms of that, like I said, Nick Fury is very much a guy where it's like, we know him, we love him, he set up the whole thing, there wouldn't be an Avengers without him, but he's in hiding, Dragon, he's in rest, and I feel like that's very appropriate to the overall character. There's an air of mystery to Nick Fury in the MCU these days.
Certainly. I think, but we are going to get a swan song to Nick Fury, which I am very much looking forward to, which I think if they tackle it right, they could really tell a really good story with it, where, he's going to be in Captain Marvel.
Oh, that's true. That's true. I forgot about that.
That's the thing. I really don't see a role for, because again, technically, I forget how they're handling this, but I want to say if Avengers 4 ends Phase 3, if I forget I forget where we're deciding when Phase 4 starts. I assume Avengers 4 will start Phase 4, right?
Mm-hmm.
Assuming that's the case, then again, we would still end Nick Fury within Phase 3. What I'm saying is, like, we should. We'd have a swan. I don't see a role for Nick Fury in Phase 4. Is what I'm saying. I think that's where it just feels like I'm agreeing with you, T. That's kind of what I'm getting. Is I think we can only do so much with Nick Fury, but we should also pay tribute to him with that.
Yeah, I don't know, Drake. I don't necessarily think there's no role for him. I just think the role is probably like I said, I think Coulson kind of coming back into the picture is more likely than Fury having a big role going forward.
Well, but again, I think a clever role, like a movie set in the '90s with with Captain Marvel, I think that's a good way to utilize Fury in a different way. That wouldn't just be like, hey, we're showing up. Like, no, actually, he's tied into the building of something. Again,
and that's the problem with his character, right? Is that much like in the comics, I feel like the MCU version of Fury is like, hey guys, I'm here. Remember me?
Yeah. So let's see. So with me overall with Fury, let me say this. So again, I think along with Coulson, because we're speaking a lot of Coulson, because again, Coulson was always a fun character, and again, he had very poignant moments in Avengers, and again, that have really kind of permeated him in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think along with Coulson, Fury is the glue of the Avengers. The two of them are pivotal in assembling that team and just kind of keeping them afloat, and again, building the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I've always loved this analogy I've kind of had for Nick Fury that really came into focus for me with Age of Ultron. Age of Ultron, then retroactively Iron Man 2, but again, Age of Ultron is what really clicked for me, where Fury's looking out for Tony Stark. He always had that great moment where he said to Tony Stark, and again, it was very much like we have to work in Nick Fury, and it was cool to see him triumphantly return with the helicarrier. That was really nice, the moment to get Fury. But the moment before, when he's telling Tony, Tony says, "You're not the director of me." He says, "I'm just an old man who cares very much about you." With that line, it kind of came into focus for me. You look back at Iron Man 2 with what he did for Tony Stark, how he saved Tony Stark's life, and I bored Tiki the tears of this when we did Road to Ultron, where I basically explained this comic. It's called Fury's Big Week.
Yeah, unfortunately, Dragon, that was one of those things where it was like an interesting story, but it's not that I was bored to tears. It was just like I was very self-conscious of the fact that I had nothing to say.
Well, the point is, and that is, it's really fun, is like I'm only going to coin one moment from that. I'm not going to go through the whole story or anything. The one moment I want to coin that kind of helped, again, additionally put this into focus is that the idea is like all the big discoveries of what built up to the Avengers is that it happened during the course of a week. We get to see all the craziness that Nick Fury has to do in a week, and basically Nick Fury, like, he's trying to rest after like an exhausting day, and like an alarm goes off on his phone or something, and he hears, like, he like taps his phone or something, and it says, Tony Stark's going to die. We ran Tony Stark's blood. He's going to die. And he wakes up in a startled, and then we see him like getting ready to like walk into the donut shop. He's prompting Blackwood. Okay, I want you to walk in there. I want you to inject him with the lithium. Still, to give him the zets. Like after 10 minutes of me talking to him, just the idea is like, he's going to save Tony Stark because he cares about him, because he knew his father, and so he has to put these. He has to get these heroes in fighting shape. Essentially, my analogy is that he's very much. He's the uncle. He's like Tony Stark's uncle in many ways. He's the uncle looking out for Tony Stark and pointing him in the right direction. I think he does that role for various other characters, even to Cap to an extent. Only Cap's far more mature than Tony Stark in that comparison.
I feel like with Cap, he almost treats Cap like a little brother.
That's the thing. Like Cap is very much, again, he doesn't get starstruck by Cap, but at the same time he has a respect for Cap. But it's like anytime he thinks, it's kind of funny if you look at it in Winter Soldiers, that Fury tries to educate Captain America in the way the world works. But what's so great is that he thinks he can convince Cap like he could convince Tony Stark, or like how he could not manipulate Tony Stark but educate Tony Stark. But Cap always has the moral high ground that Fury can't kind of maneuver. It's like, darn it, he's got me there. It's like I'm making the logical points, but Cap has the moral points that I just we're deadlocked at. So it's like I can't school this guy. He's teaching me philosophy. I'm teaching I'm teaching mathematics.
Uh-huh.
So I mean, again, with Fury, is that for me, he will look out for the good guys. He will plan ahead, even if it means stepping on ethical toes. Which again, we'll get to those deadlock debates. And what I love, and we exemplify with Coulson, is that he looks out for his people. He cares about his guys. He saved, again, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., whether people discount that or not. Look at Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., he brings Coulson back for a reason. He looks out and he trusts his people. He has faith in them. And, like Fury, there's this moment that, unfortunately, Tiki, again, it's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's like, I'm going to just make this one reference to it. It's this beautiful moment where it shows you that not only does he care about Coulson, about his trusted guys, he cares about all the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, where like he's like a no man left behind thing with Fury, where two S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, like two, like our gadget guys, for Fitz and Simmons. Fitz and Simmons, like the scientist on the S.H.I.E.L.D., on the main S.H.I.E.L.D. team. They're in a very precarious situation. They're drowning. It looks like they're goners. Like there's no one's going to be able to save them, man. That's the moment where we reintroduce Nick Fury at the end of the season, where it's it's very triumphant. Nick Fury appears in a helicopter, and these two guys are in a hopeless situation. He appears and he saves his agents. It's a beautiful moment with like fantastic score behind it. It's like, yes, that's Nick Fury. Whether he looks like he's like a guy who's been living under the bridge or not, Nick Fury's going to be there for you. He takes care of his guys.
All right.
That's Nick Fury for me.
Okay, so I feel like we've already kind of gone over, in terms of the growth. Like I said, I kind of laid it out there, Dragon. Like, he starts out, he's sort of a shadowy figure in the background. I feel like there's like an ebb and flow to Nick Fury's growth in the MCU, where his prominence kind of spikes in the Avengers and Winter Soldier era of the MCU, kind of like the late phase 1, early phase 2, and then he just sort of dies back down a little bit. So, as I said, he's very much a man where it's like he's in the shadows a lot of the time, but he steps out of the shadows when it calls for that. And I feel like that's sort of like his overall role within the tapestry of this cinematic universe.
And that is, Tiki, I love that analogy, because in the comics so often he does that. He dramatically steps out of shadow. I think
right.
It's a really good analogy. I mean, again, it's broad. I'm going to bullet point here. It's very simple. It's like Iron Man, he's an Easter egg. Iron Man 2, he's the ambassador of things to come. Captain America, the first Avenger, he's giving heroes purpose, which is what Fury does to a great extent. And we get to Avengers. He's the man. I really want to hit on the Avengers here. The Avengers is the culmination of what Fury put in motion since Iron Man, where he's a man realizing a dream to save the world with people, not weapons. The weapons, as we in a big dramatic scene in Avengers, is again, it's kind of fun how he kind of coined the phrase in the movie Phase 2. We get phase 2 and all these different phases because it's a backup measure. He's investing in people saving the world over like having like doomsday weapons and like, hey, let's blow up New York, like, any of that stuff. Like, no, like, hey, alien invasion, let's blow up New York, right, guys?
The fallacy of nuclear warfare is that as soon as you strike once, they're going to strike back, and then before you know it, everyone's dead.
Certainly. And Winter Soldier, we see him. He's on the run. He's facing definite trust issues from his past. But he's still a guy willing to do what's right, even if it burns Shield to the ground, because it's the right thing to do. It takes some kind of cat putting that in focus for him. But again, deep down, we see Fury's willing to do that. He's not like a guy who's like, I don't care. Anyone says I'm going to keep these secrets. That's kind of the archy quality we have with the MCU Furies. That he's not a guy who's just going to be rinse and repeat of like, hey, Fury looks like he's a good guy, but hey, he's still keeping secrets. Like, no, Fury's growing with the world, even if it gets him to the Ultron place.
I feel like with Avengers, that was sort of the height of him being shady, but they got past that rather quickly for good reason.
They did, but I think they addressed it smartly that way. I think they did it. They addressed it just right. Now, again, we morally went into that Winter Soldier. Again, it keeps building and progressing, which is kind of what we're hitting here. In Ultron, it kind of goes full circle in a way. At least it goes full circle to Avengers at the very least, where he is. He's a wizened, he's kind of what he said. He's a wizened old man investing in people. Because again, he's not coming with like all of S.H.I.E.L.D. all at once. Because again, S.H.I.E.L.D. is like something he's got to pull some strings because it's been destroyed since,
Mm-hmm.
But to pull that helicarrier save later on, but that helicarrier save kind of represents, there's hope again. But he's going to Tony Stark just as a guy. He says, hey, look, I invest in Tony Stark, not Iron Man, not these super people. They're people before they're icons.
Yeah, well said. Yeah.
All
right. Okay, let's see. So, defining moments, Dragon. Of course,
the big
one being, hey, we're putting a team together. Yeah, Avengers.
Tiki, one of the most profound lines for me in a whole Marvel, in the whole of the MCU is, you're part of a bigger world. You're part of a bigger universe. You just don't know it yet. Very Star Wars-esque, by the way. Very Obi-Wan. Like,
which of course, that sort of sets the standard for like Disney themselves and fans and everyone at that stage.
It's such a strong meta line of like what we're trying to do. It's like it's saying, hey, here's what we're starting to do again. It's the whole building of the universe and having it work. And again,
did I ever tell you I was a little bit underwhelmed by the first Iron Man?
I don't think you did.
Yeah, I got to admit, like the first Iron Man, like I love the first act and a half of the first Iron Man, Dragon. I love all the stuff. I love the origin story. It's a very, very solid origin story. I think we've had this conversation when we did Iron Man and Road to Ultron or somewhere down the line where Iron Man falls apart with Obadiah Stane at the end, unfortunately, and that sort of left a bad taste in my mouth with that movie. And so in that regard, like the original Iron Man was a very imperfect movie to sort of hang a cinematic universe on. And I didn't love it the same way a lot of people that summer loved it. So just to kind of put you into my headspace of, the Fury line was very mysterious to me. It was very much like not a certain thing where it was like, I don't know, Nick Fury, you're right. I don't know it yet. I don't know just how big this thing is going to be over the next 10 years.
Something just occurred to me in the moment here. I swear to God, I never thought of this, never put it together. Maybe I'm slow in the uptake. I don't know, but it's just something brilliant has occurred to me about Nick Fury. Nick Fury is Kevin Feige.
Yeah, I can see that.
He is. How wonderful.
No, I can totally see that.
What kind of meta is that? It's a guy, again, as I was kind of talking about the Avengers, it's a guy realizing the dream of people saving the world, not weapons, not doing your ordinary, like, hey, it's like, let's blow everything up like a Transformers movie. No, let's invest in these people, these individual characters, and let's have them meet each other. Let's introduce them. Let's kind of give them something, to aspire to. And again, let's build the universe. Let me approach these guys one by one. And tell them, hey, there's a plan at work here, guys. I'm going to go with Iron Man, who we're hedging all of our bets on, one of the most key pivotal actors, Robert Downey Jr., and let's secure, again, Nick Fury. Let's say he's Kevin Feige for a moment here. Again, he's going to an Iron Man 2. Very important, again, laying out more and more of the universe.
Right,
Again,
yeah, exactly. It's
Captain
like,
America, the
all
other
right,
half
Tony,
of,
here's what we're gonna do. You know, here's the plan here. You know, you got your notes ready.
the other half of your Civil War. Again, it's when it gets to Captain America. Again, it's all that's kind of fascinating. I never thought about that.
Yeah, when you get to Captain America, it's basically like, all right, Cap, you ready to go? We're gonna do this. You sure you're ready? All right, here we go.
What's funny? I'm going to say this. They did a cast photo to celebrate because Tiki this year, of course, with Infinity War. It's so mind-blowingly kind of wondrous when you really think about it. This year marks, and by the time Infinity War comes out, it will.
Infinity War is going to come out pretty damn close to like to the day 10 years from when Iron Man 1 came out.
It's always the first week in May. The time for comic. It's again, folks. It's 10 years. And they'll be the 10th anniversary. They've done so many films. They've done an Avengers trilogy within 10 years.
And honestly, Dragon, I feel like you and me and a lot of other Marvel fans feel like Thor Ragnarok was kind of the culmination of like, now we truly have what it's like to be experiencing just like classic Stan Lee, Steve Ditko, comic book Marvel, like the experience of characters popping in and out and like these cosmic tales that barely take place on Earth and, outlandish characters. It's all there.
Yes, and what I'm saying is with that cast photo, it's an awesome cast photo. Did you get a chance to see it, or like they did like a little video on it and then
for Avengers?
For the 10-year anniversary, like everyone who's been in on the Marvel films.
I haven't seen it yet.
It's like Stan Lee sitting next to Chris Evans, like it's like a class photo, but they're all like on bleachers and stuff. The point is, with that image, and this is what I'm getting with all that, is that with the image like that, a historic image like that, all these great actors that we've seen, and God knows how many movies. If I were to like put a quote on the placard, it would have to be, again, it has to be that line, because again, it's just so imagine how beautiful that would be. You're part of a bigger universe. You just don't know it yet. Again, that's the quote that people I mean, oh man, it's one of those the most pivotal line in the MCU was that line.
Mm-hmm. Well said.
And Nick Fury says it. Okay, so let's see. Beyond that, I think I kind of summarizes like a lot of the Iron Man moments for Nick Fury, but. Again, the meeting of Captain America is a biggie, and it's kind of funny. It was in the animated film before it was in the Avengers. The in Avengers Ultimate, sorry, it was the animated movie Ultimate Avengers, the first one where they unfreeze Captain America. They do that story. People point out there's a lot in common. There's the whole Steve Rogers wakes up and he thinks he's like waking up in this form, like, oh my god, am I in a Nazi base?
I wonder if Infinity War is going to take some homage from the Black Panther Avengers movie.
Well, we'll see. Again, it'll be
because I mean we see from the marketing that Black Panther's front and center there.
Well, they might have done that already with Civil War, because you got to remember
that's true.
The whole Black Panther and Captain America having a story together, having a bond. And actually, well, now you say it. Of course, the trailer that we do have, Cap and Black Panther are definitely, they got a dynamic going on there. So that's probably pulled from that. A part of that's probably pulled from that movie. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, just that scene again. I've seen it before, but it still isn't quite just kind of the feeling of seeing it in First Avenger, where Steve Rogers, like this version, where I'm starting to like kind of get like why this character is great. Why Steve Rogers is just someone to invest in. He's running this character who's like seeing in modern day, and
he's seen. He's seen a terrifying sight, Dragon. All right, like lest we forget, he's bearing witness to a banner for the 2010 Tim Burton Alice in Wonderland movie. Okay, I mean that must just traumatize him in its own right.
He's probably cocking his head a little at it, saying, "Huh, that's not the '60s Alice." Oh wait, no, you never saw the '60s. Never mind, never saw the '60s Alice.
Yeah.
Or even the '50s. I'm sorry. Okay, the point is,
Dragon, I'm sorry, just on the Alice in Wonderland tangent, I told you this off air, but how funny would it be if there was a post-credits in that movie? Like, basically, instead of the awesome Avengers trailer we get a proper, like, shawarma-style post-credits where just imagine this, Dragon. Just imagine, like, right after the big dramatic, like, welcome back, Cap, it's like, hey, by the way, we have some time to kill. This is Agent Coulson. You know, hey, let's go see a movie. Why not? Why not? What's playing? Oh, Alice in Wonderland. Cap, you ever see Alice in Wonderland? Wait, I'm still totally confused. All right, yeah, you know what? Maybe it'll ease him in. Alice in Wonderland is a classic story. All right, 3 for Alice in Wonderland. Phil, you gonna be joining us? Of course, Phil is skinny as a schoolboy to be, you know, like, oh boy, it's Captain America. And then Dragon cuts to the end of the movie, and they are not like the pirates in the SpongeBob movie. Let's just put it that way. They're very displeased.
I'm gonna have to poke a hole in that because technically Coulson doesn't meet him until Avengers. But how funny, or it might be even funnier if just randomly, Fury's saying, "Oh, Cap, what do you want to do?" Oh, that looks good.
God.
All right, if you're sure, like Fury has to stomach it. Like Fury probably knows because Fury's up on everything. He probably knows.
Right, yeah. He's seen the.
All right, sure, yeah. Let's see it. God.
God.
Okay. Anyway, seriously, getting back to this.
Like, I'm sorry. Briefly, like, what if Cap is just totally like blown away by the CGI? He's just like awestruck by it,
and Fury's just checking his watch.
Oh God. Anyway, oh God. Okay.
Anyway, back to this really important moment for Captain America. He's back. He's in modern day Times Square. It's a beautiful sight, and the music is swirling, and then Fury arrives. Cap, you've been asleep, Cap. Of course, the whole I had a date, and again, it's like that great haunting line where you feel so much sympathy for Steve Rogers, but again, he's getting that welcome, and Fury apologizing for the theatrics, which shows again it's not like super, it's a Fury who knows how to approach people. He's not just like approaching them like pawns. It's it's a great moment. Again, it's another great welcome wagon. I think you hit upon something perfectly, Tiki, earlier on. Is that again, it's an extended, more personal version of the Iron Man cameo. It just has more resonance, and it does feel like a great callback. I never thought of it as a great callback to that. I'm very glad you pointed that out because again, it does have a magic, and it has like we're so close now. We've done the big thing that happens in the Avengers comic. Again, not the first Avengers comic, but it's like, hey, there's a big thing that happens early in the Avengers history. We unthaw Captain America, which means, hey, we've done something huge in that story, which means how much closer can we get? We've introduced one with Iron Man, and now it's like, hey, the X factor of what truly makes the Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
He's around. It's great.
All right.
Of course, I'm sorry, but take us. I don't want to just...
Yeah, I think the most important moment in Avengers, just to pick one, is the duplicitous nature of how he uses Coulson's death and the baseball cards and everything.
Yeah, but still, the death of Coulson, though, that for me is like, I need you to keep both eyes open.
It's kind of like a best of both worlds, right? Where it's like, we get the heartfelt stuff with Coulson and Nick Fury, but then we also kind of see, like, even though Nick Fury is being duplicitous for a good reason, it still very much is a reason for them to question him.
It's funny. He is, like, Coulson gives him permission to be duplicitous in that scene, because remember, the last moment that Coulson has with him, and again, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or no, folks, it is still a moment where the old Phil Coulson, like, the Phil Coulson from the Land of the Living here, where he says... in his last moments, he says, "Look, stay with me. Stay with me. Eyes on me." He says, "Sir, this never would have worked. They needed this. They needed something to." And again, implying they needed something to come together with for your dream to come true. It's like Coulson giving him permission to, do your super spy thing. Do your, if it's duplicitous, it's for a good cause. Like use my death as something like basically. Honor the hero that I love. Again, like a guy who also had a similar dream that he followed Fury with. Like, hey, I want to see heroes back in the world again, like I did with Captain America as a boy. Make that happen, for the new generation, for the generation of young people, for the people who in the world who need a reminder, need that nostalgic reminder. Get this team together, even if it costs my life. Do that. And again, that's a heavy thought that really. Weigh on Fury's shoulders there, and he uses it, and he takes no pleasure in Coulson's death, bringing this to fruition. But he echoes to Maria Hill there, says she says those are in Coulson's locker. They needed the push. When he says they needed the push, that's him saying, Coulson gave me permission to do this. But again, not in so many words. It's a quite introspective moment of Fury, and Fury making the right calls following that, following that.
Yeah, it very much shows the layers of him, and that it's not just like, ooh, treacherous, treacherous guy going behind your back. Ooh, he's so bad.
That's the thing. All of Fury's actions, treacherous or no, again, like the phase 2, the weapons thing, that was a fallback that was really pushed by the World Security Council. They were the ones who went for the gun on that thing. They wanted to.
The men in the poorly lit rooms who secretly control the universe.
Yes.
To quote Spoonie.
Yeah, and again, Fury was very. Again, I love how smart we see Fury in this scene where he says, "No, we're not gonna bomb New York. That's a stupid idea." It's again, Fury's just like, these are always a failsafe, and Fury has to think forward, so he has to have these at the ready, basically taking the Tesseract. Again, that's a Fury call of like, we need something to power these weapons, and this is a dangerous thing we want to have in our possession. And he's thinking of like the technical applications of opening doors to another world and such. But again, it's again, not with a bad intention. All of his stuff is always what. All of these duplicitous or possibly reckless things are with the best of intentions, opposed to, again, in the comics where it was not always clear cut like that. But again, it's interesting.
Yeah. Okay, I got to admit, Dragon, I'm going to be doing my Winter Soldier rewatch for our Falcon installment, but of course, you being more fresh on Winter Soldier, if you could narrow it down to one moment, that'd be great.
Easy.
Okay.
So also, I just want to real quick, the promise speech again, how Fury puts a bow on at the end of Avengers, the whole so what was this? Oh, a statement, and of course the last shot of Captain America on the motorcycle, and he says, "A promise." Like a promise to this beauty of the Avengers mission there. Anyway, yes. So Winter Soldier, very easily. To summarize, like all the great debates that the whole freedom versus fear debate that Cap and Fury have. What gets us to that point, what gets us to that debate, is this great personal moment with Fury that, again, I think speaks volumes. Where we spoke of legacy earlier on with the original, with the original Nick Fury, with the Howling Commandos and such, and how legacy definitely bleeds into the history of the MCU, which again he champions in Iron Man 2. We had this moment in Winter Soldier where they're going down an elevator, which is a very dangerous place. We find out hallways and elevators are always bound for disaster in the MCU. It just seems to be a trend. But we have this quiet scene where Steve Rogers and Nick Fury are going down the elevator and just having a conversation with each other. Says, they used to play music. And Fury remarks, and again, Fury's letting Cap in a little bit because he knows, okay, Cap's not really trusting me here. I'm going to give him an inkling. I'm going to show him why we need to be a little harder in this world, why we need to be a little, a little more on our guard in this world, why we need to be thinking of like fear over a freedom type approach, where he explains the story of his grandfather who used to be an elevator operator back in the day. And he says,
the elevator operator story. I know exactly what you're going with this. Yeah,
right.
Go ahead.
Fury's grandfather worked in a nice building. He was the elevator operator, and he got tips. It was a really, really nice building. And and back in the day, he would walk by, and you say hi, people say hi back. But as the years went on, you say hi back, they say keep on stepping. And again, like boiling down to Steve Rogers, the kid who got mugged very often. He's saying, did he ever get mugged? And because he held like the lunch bag tighter and tighter. Does he ever get mugged? He says, no, but he says, sometimes sometimes he'd run across him. They say, what's in the bag? What'd he do? He'd show him. Open the bag. They'd see some crumpled up ones and a 22. Again, my grandfather loved people, but I didn't trust them very much. And again, that scene is a perfect statement on why Nick Fury has to be duplicitous and why he has a point. Why, again,
of course, it also kind of speaks to the black history of it all. Kind of the unfortunately, Dragon, I hate to say it, but the paranoia that still is very justified in a lot of African Americans to this day, especially in regards to muggings and police and everything. It's an unfortunately reality that we live in, but it's still very much a reality that a lot of people face, Dragon. I live close to Oakland, and I've cited Oakland on a number of occasions as just being it's got a rich history to it. It's got a proud history to it. but it very much is a problem area. You know what I mean? In terms of the, in terms of police and stuff. And I don't want to get too political with this, but I'm just saying I absolutely know where Fury's coming from when it comes to that distrust for people.
Sure, but let me piggyback off. I guess this is a point I really wanted to make too. With kind
Yeah,
of
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, we're getting close to the we're getting close to the impact. I just want to kind of do a little bit of that. And there's a, with that point, Fury again, particularly our the Ultimate Nick Fury, and again Sam Jackson, again you inherently model after really one of the most intimidating, the man who personifies cursing in a movie, Sam Jackson. He plays on the first impression of a black man, where we see it is subverted. And the clever thing is we subvert that with Nick Fury, especially in a scene like the one I just described, where we subvert the intimidation factor of you walk down the street, especially if you walk up and you see a guy like Nick Fury, a guy with scars and eye patch, he's in all leather, he's Sam Jackson.
Well, I would be intimidated, Dragon, but it would have absolutely nothing to do with the color of his skin.
Sure. I'm just saying, looking at Nick Fury as kind of the example of just that, but with someone ordinary on the street like that.
I mean, if I saw like white Nick Fury and he was haggard and had an eye patch, I'd still be intimidated.
Oh, sure. Well, I'm just saying again, these kind of an extreme example of that with Fury just being again kind of holding the flag for that. But basically, we subvert that with Fury, and the point is someone who looks intimidating at first glance, someone who sounds and looks intimidating, we learn has more to him. We subvert that. We see there is an honorable softness to Nick Fury, where there is a guy with a story, a guy who, again, he wants to get together the first team of superheroes. He's a guy who wants to protect people, even if it means holding, they're a lot bigger than a 22, holding like, the Triskelion, the whole, the helicarriers turn, death weapons. It's like, again, it was like a suggestion to protect people and just like take out threats before they, again, the whole securities versus freedoms and everything. But again, with a point, and again, duplicity for the point of safety, for protection. Again, a guy with layers, a guy who is kind of indoctrinated in him from that sort of his grandfather, that again, people are worth protecting. There are nice people in the world, but there are also people who will do bad things. People who you walk down the street and they'll try to strong arm you or potentially kill you. You got to be prepared to show a strong front. The Avengers itself, the Avengers movie, it's, hey, we're going to, they take down an alien armada, and that shows to the world, that promises to the world that, hey, we're not to be messed with. Again, that's through his like people, the people versus weapons example, but it's still through that mentality. And again, as it goes forward, he sees definitely, it's about believing in people versus using people as a scare tactic. So again, just that moment I think is very big for Fury, and also shows kind of a nexus where again Fury is just again like various Marvel characters. He's a New Yorker. He's a guy off the street. He's a human person who is kind of have character and layers thrust upon him, who represents a network of people through S.H.I.E.L.D., who represents just kind of a character with very visible scars through his eye. Again, he's a guy who doesn't trust people because the last time he trusted somebody, he lost an eye. He doesn't trust for a reason. And with a layered character like that, I like to draw this last comparison. By all means, we'll wrap it up here with kind of our final impact and such. But I think he is a more in live action, he's a more successful example of what Amanda Waller is supposed to be. Amanda Waller, the DC character.
That's a very good way to put it. I can see that.
I'll explain it like this for the diehard fans out there. In the Justice League animated series, Justice League Unlimited, you have the best version of Amanda Waller, voiced by CCH Pounder, the same. Either that or Assault on Arkham, the real Suicide Squad movie. The same type of Waller, where you have someone who has good intentions, someone who means well, and like someone who will have an arc of like she'll come to like Batman, where at first she's like, can I work with them? Can I not work with them? And again, like someone who has a softness, who has like she's a patriot, but she's a patriot who will she'll pull like a Snowden, like she'll violate freedom, she'll like force bad guys to work for her and like threaten to blow them up. Like she'll do really questionable things or duplicitous things. But again, is technically a good guy. We'll have complicated people like Amanda Waller, again, will represent the comics and the animation over live action, where Fury represents that, but honestly, an even more layered, likable version of that in live action. It's basically, again, he's the Marvel equivalent of Amanda Waller from DC.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, Dragon, I kind of, just in general, I sort of like to wrap my impact today into my outro, if you don't mind.
All right, so that means you want me to go first then?
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I'm reading it wrong. Impact today is the final thing. My bad. Oh, I'm a little on the tired side, Dragon. I hope I've been keeping up with the conversation.
No, we're towards the end. We're getting to the big meat and potatoes of it all.
Yeah, no, by all means, I'll go first, then you can wrap it up. So yeah, impact today, folks. I think Nick Fury is he represents kind of like someone who he's almost kind of like the shepherd of Marvel in a way. He's like herding all these.
I like that. Characters.
What?
I like that. That's good. The shepherd of Marvel. I love that.
Thank you. You know, he's like herding like even back in the earliest days of his character. You know, like he's been herding all these. He's been herding people towards a specific purpose. You know, back in the day when it was the Howling Commandos, Nick Fury, he was all about diversity in the war and, just the best men to get the job done, no matter the color of their skin. And of course, with Ultimate Nick Fury, we have that sort of, that kind of, in James Bond was another kind of big flagship of the character. And then Ultimate Nick Fury was kind of, getting it into the African-American consciousness. And then, of course, Dragon ultimately, with the shepherd of the MCU, that's what he is. He's the beacon. He's the guiding light. He's sort of the thing that he's never the largest part, but he's always the thing that these stories kind of revolve around in a certain element. Not necessarily revolve around, but he's always kind of the constant there. He's, and so, I don't know, Dragon. I hope I'm kind of summing up my thoughts properly. And like I said, I'm very tired. I have kind of a, so I don't want to give away how tired I am, but it's fine. It's fine. So really, Fury, he comes in all shapes and sizes. He's duplicitous, but he's duplicitous for a reason. And especially in the MCU, there's no real downside to him being kind of shady. He always does it for good intentions. And in the comic, he's just kind of that guiding force. He's just kind of like that always present person who's appeared in every major book, who's always sort of in the background lurking. And I feel like Nick Fury going forward is going to sort of be that. He's going to kind of, I don't know if there's going to come a day where Nick Fury is going to completely retire from the MCU, because I always feel like there's going to be sort of these side Captain Marvel style stories that you can tell with him. And there's always going to be big events that he can pop up for. So, and of course, you've also got the, the super DNA and whatever you call it too. That helps. But yeah, in general, in regards to Black history, like I said, it's always, I bet it's super empowering, kind of like a double take sort of thing with, such a popular actor like Samuel Jackson to be the face, be the image of a character as rooted in Marvel as Nick Fury is. And of course, with the original kind of, striking out for diversity, there's a lot of aspects to Nick Fury, a lot of, sort of a tangled web of different things to get into. And I think we did it quite well.
Fury opened a lot of doors. I think that's kind of what you're saying as well. I think, Fury opened a lot of doors.
Sure.
So I guess for me, the impact today that Nick Fury has made is that, it's interesting how we haven't, again, I can't help but remark on how interesting it is that we haven't ignored Fury's duplicity in the films and the secret of quality, but we've taken that and we've turned it into an arc. Fury is the arc of learning that Fury is a man who deserves our trust, and it makes us not doubt it. It makes us not, again, it shows us this, and like you don't doubt it, you question it for like a moment in the Avengers. But again, that's part of the arc. It's showing you it's teaching you not to be naive, to raise these questions. But again, while kind of going with your heart, go with, it's like going with a sense, like a sixth sense of trust. It's very much, seeing someone like, seeing goodness in someone else, which is what Fury's done with, these, what was then 6 people and now is kind of kind of spawned it. Like again, he created the Avengers, which is now its own organization, which now goes.
Yeah, like roughly 50 plus.
That's what I'm saying. Again, but he kind of it started at 6. It's kind of amazing,
Yeah.
Fury, he reflects, I think, mainly MCU Fury, by all means, this year. It's kind of bring it all home with the MCU, is that he reflects a forward-thinking America with the best of intentions, who needs people and ideals to keep the mission pure. He needs men like Captain America. He needs geniuses like Tony Stark. He needs he needs gods with good hearts like Thor. He needs the people over the ability. He needs Bruce Banner, not the Hulk. That's the thing. He needs he wants Dr. Banner on board. He doesn't want the Hulk. He doesn't want they use him for science. But again, you need those people and those ideals to keep the mission of protecting the world pure and not complicated, not convoluted, not like you're doing more harm than good. Trust is selective with Fury, but usually Trust is very selective with Fury. You can only the line he said in Into Shield once is I can only trust people. I can only count the people I trust in one hand, and I'm not afraid to cut off fingers.
Nice.
And, again, Fury, the people Fury is trusted, with the exception of Robert Redford, is panned out in everybody.
God, well, come on! How can you not trust Robert Redford?
Exactly. See, it's understandable. And I guess lastly, in this kind
he's Howard Hamlin Sr. for Christ's sake, in my own headcanon.
And lastly, I think just for the Black History context to go out on for me is that I think what we did with Fury, with the MCU Nick Fury, the Sam Jackson Nick Fury, is that we took the cool black guy stereotype. We took oh my god, there's a cool black guy. There's the Grape Soda magazine. We took something very, very stereotypical. We take that stereotype. Who exemplifies that more than anything? Sam Jackson, the coolest black guy in all of movies. But we show, and I think what's important as we kind of ruminate on with the movies and the arcs of how the performance went with Nick Fury, is that we show he's more than just Sam Jackson, but a character deserving of Sam Jackson's talent. A guy who shows only Sam Jackson could play his part. It's not a part that, hey, we got Sam Jackson to play his part. It's Sam Jackson should play this part. We show why we get the Pulp Fiction Sam Jackson, not just the Snakes on a Plane Sam Jackson.
Dragon, I still maintain that Snakes on a Plane was the height of the Sam Jackson cult, in spite of the fact that no one saw that movie in theaters.
That's what I'm saying.
It's an enigma of a movie, Dragon. It's an enigma of a pop culture phenomenon.
That's what I'm saying. We're going less cult. We're going more a guy who who earned his name on
absolutely.
on everyone's Rolodex of go-to actors. And in the end, that's the legacy of Nick Fury, the guy who put together, who again is so pivotal within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I can't imagine it any way without him.
All right. Well, that's all for now, folks. Until next time, when we talk about the heroes who made the leap from page to screen, showing us a world not simply black or white, but brimming with color as well as character.
With our next installment of Black History Heroes.
I am sick of these mother effing Chitauri on my mother effing helicarrier.